Okay, I'm just going to wait a few minutes and see if somebody jumps on. My sound from my previous video was not working. So I'm hoping that the sound is working in this video. I'm hoping that someone will jump on and tell me. Is the sound working? Please let me know in the comments and then I'll get started. Yay! I'm so glad. Oh my goodness, I was talking for like 10 minutes and just going on and on and on, and the sound isn't working. So we will start over. Not a big deal. I was not very far. So hello, I'm so glad you're all here. Okay. So what I was saying, I got my arches paper ready, and I've already painted this a couple of times because the first time I painted this, my audio wasn't working. Surprise, surprise. And then the second time, I was so worried about the audio working that I forgot to press record on my camera. So that leads me to today's live video. There we go. Goodness. Yeah, I moved studios, so now it's backlighting instead of front lighting, and I like it a lot better because I'm not trying to compete and work in a tiny space sandwiched between two lights. So it's really great for me too. This is awesome. So I've already mixed this color for the center of my sunflower, and it's basically just a dark red, Perylene maroon, and then Payne's gray, which is a dark blue, and then a little bit of raw umber violet and Van Dyke brown. And I know I'm going to have to add another layer later because watercolor always lightens up when it dries, but I just want to get that in place. And then I've got my paint here. I'm mixing, or I've already mixed, yellow ochre. Let's see if you can see that a little bit better. Not really, this palette's giant, so that's as good as it's going to get, but it's yellow ochre, quinacridone gold, and then isowindolin yellow. It just makes this really pretty, like amber color when it's all mixed together to create the petals for my sunflower. And what I was saying, which you couldn't hear me earlier, is that to create the petals, I'm just using the body of my brush, pressing down and then lifting back up again. And if you can master that stroke, like that's something that I would tell everyone to practice over and over and over, is just that kind of one blade leaf stroke. Because if you can paint that, you can paint basically anything else. I use it so much with petals and leaves. It's really handy for painting flowers. And I'm kind of spacing these apart because I know I'm going to go in and add another layer in a little bit. There's no rhyme or reason though, I'm just kind of adding in petals. And I sprayed down my paints when I first sat down to paint, but I think they need just a little bit more. This is just plain water. I like to squirt down my paints when I start painting just because it's easier to pick up the color. The paper I'm using is Arches Cold Press. It is my all-time favorite. I resisted for so long because of the price, but it really is so good. It's so good. Another paper that I like that's similar, it's not as good. Arches is the greatest. But if you want to try something similar, but you don't want to buy Arches, I recommend, oh goodness, I'm getting paint all over myself. I recommend Blick Premier. It's about half the price. You can get it on dickblick.com. That's a good one. Anything that comes on a block, I really tend to like. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Be happy to answer what I can. Sometimes I just get so in the zone painting that I forget to explain what I'm doing. And I'm trying to be better about that. My second choice of paper was Blick Premium. I like that. Another one that I've discovered that you can get on Amazon, the brand is called Fluid. And I just recently tried it out, but I went through the whole thing really fast because I just kept reaching for it. It was really, really nice. And it was probably $15. What paints am I using? Well, it's kind of a mixture of a bunch of different paints, but the majority of these are, well, all of them are professional grade. I love using professional grade because they're just really nice. It's hard to go back to a student grade after you've tried these out. And the nice thing is they last forever. So once you buy them, they are more expensive, but they last forever. So they're a really good investment. But the brands I love are Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton, and there's some Schmincke, M. Graham, and Holbein in here as well. But Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton are my very favorite. After this video is over, I'm going to link my Amazon store down below. I have all of my paint colors listed in there if you want to check those out. Just going back in and adding another layer. I added a little bit more of the Iso-Indolin yellow, which is kind of this brighter yellow. It's more like a yellow-orange. I wouldn't say it's yellow. But I'm just going to add petals in between where I first put those down. So one question is, will you ever do an acrylic tutorial of flowers? You know, maybe. I obviously love watercolor, and that's been my focus. I do have acrylic paints, and I would love to do acrylic more, but as far as a tutorial, I'm not as well versed, I guess, with acrylic. I could do just like maybe a YouTube live or something where I'm just playing with acrylics and like a paint with me type video, but I don't know if I would do a full-on tutorial. What is your favorite orange watercolor paint? I love Purell Scarlet. I don't know if you can see it. It's like here right at the very, very bottom of the screen. It's just a nice, true orange. I'm mixing in a little bit of brown. Some of these that are still wet, I'm just going to tap in a little bit of brown. Just add a little character. Not going to go crazy with it or anything. Okay, this color I've had for a really, really long time, but I've recently rediscovered it. It's called Rose Doré, and it is so pretty. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just like this really soft, it's like in between red and coral. Really, really pretty though. When you add a little bit of water to it, it's just beautiful. It's by Winsor Newton. Let me use that for some of these other little filler flowers. Going for kind of a primary color scheme right now with the red, yellow, and blue. But I'm doing like muted tones. Do you prefer pans or tubes? That is a good question. I mean, I painted with pan sets for a really, really long time just because that's what I knew how to use. I was scared of tube paints for a really long time. And now that I know how tube paints work, I prefer them. I like it too because I can really customize the color that I put in my palette. Now, obviously with something like this, the palette is giant and it's harder to take with me on vacation or wherever, but you can get little pans that are like just tiny with the little tins. I'm sure you've seen them. And you can get those little wells that fit inside those and just squirt in your paint and let those dry and take that with you. I've done that before and I really love doing that. Yes, I do love pans. I use them all the time. I had a bunch of the Prima Marketing Ink pan sets, and I really, really like those. I think one common misconception with watercolor is that your first layer you put down is your final layer. I used to think that too, and I kept wondering why I wasn't getting the depth that I wanted. It's just because I needed to add more layers. So like you'll see with this leaf especially, I'll add another layer to it later to darken that up a little bit and it'll just look really nice. Now the same green that I had, I'm adding a little bit of yellow ochre to it because this is a little bit too green. I know it looks a little more brown on the screen, but it's a little too green in person. Oh, thank you. That's so nice. So Perylene green is another one that's like really, really nice. I like to mix that with Undersea green. They're both by Daniel Smith. You'll see. It's just a nice, deep green. It looks almost black right here, but add just a little bit of water to it to lighten it up a tiny bit. I'm using a size 10 round brush. It's Princeton Velvet Touch, and I just picked this up at Hobby Lobby. I really like this line. I've used the Princeton Heritage brushes forever, and I really like those too, but I feel like these, the bristles are a little bit like stiffer, and so I have more control over especially these fine lines. And it's a versatile brush. I can use this for an entire painting without having to switch up my brushes, which I like. Let's see. What am I going to do next? So right here, I've got some bleeding happening where the green has blended into the red, and I'm not going to try and fix it. I kind of like when things like that happen. I feel like it helps tie everything together, and it's part of why I love watercolor. So I know some people prefer to not let that happen, and if I didn't want this to happen, I would just wait for that to dry first before adding anything next to it. Let's see here. I just want a really soft green, but I don't want it to be dark. I want it to be really, really soft and light. Lots of water. The palette that I'm using, this one is by Mijello. I hope I'm saying that right. And it is the Silverano palette. Now, I love this brand. This particular palette is not my favorite. My favorite is the Bulletproof because it's glass. It rinses perfectly clean, which I really, really like. So when I'm finished with a color, like if one of these runs out, I can rinse it out and it doesn't look like that color was ever there. It's really nice. Okay, this is where things get a little tricky because I'm trying to tie these elements together. And sometimes that can be tricky. It's kind of fun to paint and get to chat with you live. So this is fun for me. You guys are so sweet. I feel like I kind of have an advantage with this painting because I have the screen off to the side and I can clearly see where I need to add things in. Now, a little hack, if you don't have a monitor, which you probably don't, is just take a picture with your phone up high so you don't have to like tilt your painting and hold it back. Your paint will just run down. You don't want that to happen. So if you just snap a quick picture, then you'll be able to clearly see where you're missing things or what you need to do. Actually, let's see. The sunflower, what colors did you use? So actually, I'm going back in right now and I'm going to add another layer of petals. And I've mixed, it's just a mixture of a couple of different warm yellows. Yellow Ochre by Winsor Newton. Isoindolin Yellow, which is by Daniel Smith. And I can link all of these down below after the video is done. And then quinacridone Gold, which is a really nice color. I should show it to you on its own really quick. I'll use this scratch piece of paper. It kind of reminds me of nail polish almost. Like, you know how it kind of has that, I don't know if you can actually even tell, but just like the sheen that it has to it. It's just really nice. I feel like it's not really being represented well on camera, but there you go. Quinacridone Gold. It's a winner. Okay, now I'm going to let those petals dry before I add another layer to my center. I'm going to go back and add some details to this stuff over here. Now, Rose Dorée, I'm just going to go back over with that same color. Actually, I'm going to mix in a little bit of alizarin crimson just to darken it up a tiny bit. Yes, I've done a few other live videos and they're pretty recent. If you click on the videos tab when you're on my home channel and just scroll back through a little bit, you should be able to find them. I don't do them very often, but I should. I enjoy them. I know they kind of get lengthy, but I like being able to chat and answer questions live. So I talked about adding that second layer to get more depth. Here is that in action. And I'm just going right over the top. I kind of like when you can see that under layer, so I'm not trying to perfectly cover it. But that's just a personal style preference. It's not like a rule. See, I'm actually going to mix this up a little before I go crazy with my green. Adding a little bit of Brilliant Pink, a new favorite of mine. Just mixing up the color slightly. Felt like it needed another little red flower up there. Have I used references? Oh, yes. If you missed it, so these are drying for a second, so I'm going to just show you what I'm using. The story was I had filmed this video and this was going to be today's video and I forgot to hook up my microphone and so I had no audio for it. And so then I painted it again last night and I was so focused on getting my audio working that I forgot to hit record on... I dropped some green. We'll make it work. So I forgot to hit my camera, hit record. So that's why I'm doing a live video. I dropped some green. It ain't no thing. I'll just scoop that up with a dry brush. And then we're going to go over the top of that once it dries and blend it in. It'll be fine. Not even worried. And then this little dot right here, also not worried about it because I'm going to add some details that you won't even notice. So it's not a big deal. I'm my biggest thing when I'm painting is, because watercolor is one of those things that it's hard to just change it. Once it's down, it's kind of down, unless you act really fast. But once there are a lot of layers, I'm almost done with my painting. It's kind of a done deal. So the biggest skill that you can learn with watercolor is how to adapt. If you can learn how to adapt and just accept what's happened and learn how to roll with it, that's like the best thing you can learn. I'm just playing with another green. I'm going to mix quinacridone golden with that. I love mixing this color with my green because it just, I don't know, warms it up and it's just really pretty. Okay. Now let me know if you have any questions as I'm painting. I got a little bit distracted with the paint that dropped, and I was going to add in some deeper color right here, but it's still a little bit damp, and so I'm just going to go ahead and tap in that color. I can tell it's going to form a little bit of a bloom because I waited too long to add it in, but again, not worried about it. So talk to me more. The question is, do you have any advice on how to make floral arrangements feel seasonal? So fall or winter. Tell me more about what you mean. I have some thoughts, but I just would love some more clarity on that. I'm kind of resting my pinky down on the paper because I don't want to put my hand down because I might smudge over here. But I do still need like a little bit of that balance. I could paint these kinds of leaves all day long. I just love it. And sometimes I just keep painting them and forget to kind of break it up a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of texture, tie in some of that brown. So the question is, do you prefer liquid watercolor or watercolor already in a container? And we kind of talked about that earlier, but I prefer tube watercolor paints, which come moist in the tube. The trick is to not use them straight out of the tube. You want to squirt them out onto your palette and let them dry for at least 24 hours before you use them. I also love pan sets. There are some really great brands out there, but just a personal preference, I prefer the tube paints. Winsor & Newton and Daniel Smith are my top two favorite. Another question. Okay, so this is the clarity. I'd like to make a winter piece, but should I focus on certain colors, or do you have experience with what flowers I could use? So yeah, to help flowers feel seasonal, this is going to feel a little bit more like late summer because I've chosen colors that kind of fall into that category, sort of these like amber tones, muted down reds and blues. It's not like that bright pop of summer, you know, that you see in June and July, which are like the neon bright colors. So that's one way is to choose colors that kind of fit with the winter theme. I do have a winter anemone tutorial, which I use a lot of just blue in that, and that just makes it feel more that icy, wintry feel just because of that. But you could look at wedding bouquets, see what florists use in the winter. That'll give you a big hint as to what kind of flowers would work. That's what I like to do. I hope that helps. Another question is, are you self-taught or did you study art? So I've always loved art ever since I was really little. I always was drawing or painting or coloring, just creating all sorts of things. And I did study fine art in college. But I didn't like study watercolor by any means. The watercolor is all self-taught. I mean, I picked up a few techniques here and there in school, but nothing that would help me with this. It's all been trial and error, which I think is really the best way to learn. Just start painting, see what works for you, see what doesn't work, because what might work for me may not work for you. And I throw a lot of these personal style things in there that definitely don't have to do. But I just like how they look. I hope that helps answer your question. What is your go-to flower to paint? When I'm just sitting down and I have no idea what to paint, it's probably roses or anemone or poppies. They kind of interchange. Yeah, roses and anemone, those are my go-to. If you look back through my videos, you can kind of see that. I tend to do those a lot, so. Ooh, I just added some Perylene. I think the color is Perylene Violet by mistake, but I'm thinking I'm gonna like it. So I'm waiting for this to dry before I add the detail lines, kind of like I did here. Just going to tap this color in a little bit. Thank you. Sometimes it's hard to wait for things to dry. I just want to keep painting. Especially now that I've discovered this color combination. I've mixed in a little bit of purple to that brown I already had going on, and it's really pretty. So I do have a online course coming out in just a week or so. Hopefully I can get it up and going. I had an injury where it kind of set me back a little bit. So anyway, it's all about composition, and it's going to be called the Beginner's Guide to Watercolor Flower Composition. I'm going to teach all about my go-to formulas for creating compositions that work every time, kind of what makes a composition work, and what to keep in mind as you're building your own compositions. So stay tuned for that. If you want to be notified about it, make sure that you're following me on Instagram, and you can also sign up for my free supply checklist, and that will get you on my email list, and then you'll be notified that way too. So we're still waiting for those to dry. I don't want to paint a line and have it spread out everywhere, kind of like what happened here. I painted a line and it kind of spread out a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but I just want to wait. I'm this close to being done. I might as well just wait for a second. So yeah, the course, because it's beginner friendly, I do simpler flowers as well. And there's something really exciting. I'm so excited that I've been working on to help you learn how to do compositions on your own. Should I do a sneak peek? I really shouldn't, but I should. Okay, I will be right back. I'm going to go grab this special little sneak peek of what's going to be included in the course. We're waiting for these leaves to dry. Hang out for just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, so I don't want to show you too much, but I will show you just a little bit. So I've created fresh flower compositions that you can use as your reference for painting compositions. So you will not be copying another artist's painting. You'll be able to put your own spin on things, which is really exciting. I feel like that's something that people struggle with a lot, is they want to paint compositions, but they also feel like they're not developing their own style because they, are copying other artists and what they're doing. So it's harder to get their own style. So I have these guides, and then I've also labeled what kinds of flowers they are, whether they're a focal flower or a secondary focal flower, filler flowers. So you can swap out the flowers if you don't love the colors or the flowers themselves. I kind of teach you what kind of flowers are focal flowers, filler flowers, all of that. But there's a lot in here. I don't want to show you everything, but I think there are 32 pages in here. There might be more. Oh yeah, there's more. I can't remember. This isn't the whole thing. I just grabbed a few pages, but let me show you another one. There's a circle composition. You're so sweet. Thank you. I have put a lot of work into this. This has been over a year of just listening to people and hearing what they're struggling with. And I really, really wanted to produce something that was going to help people learn how to do compositions on their own without having to copy another artist. So I'm really, really excited about it. Tell your friends. Okay, so this is dry. Finally going to get to use my purpley brown color. These details. And it fooled me. It wasn't quite dry, but that's okay. We're just adapting here. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'll be having a free training about the 3 secrets to a successful watercolor flower composition. And it kind of leads into the course, but if you're interested in just the free training, you can go check that out once it's available. I think this might be almost finished. There's like this weird little gap in here. I'm just going to add a quick little something in there, just so it kind of finishes that off. And then I'll call it done. I'm pretty active over on Instagram, so if you have any questions, please send me a DM. Yes, I'm Snowberry Design Co on Instagram. Do you have to pay for it? So my online course, yes, you will have to pay for that. It includes this and a bunch of training videos, as well as a Facebook group that you can ask me any questions in there too. But the free training, no, you don't have to pay for that. That's just going to be fun. All right, I think I'm going to end this video, and I'm really, really excited to get to know you guys a little bit more. So the course isn't quite out yet. It's going to launch in just a couple weeks. I got injured the end of June and been trying to recover from that, so that kind of set me back a little bit. But if you follow me on Instagram, if you follow me on YouTube, you will know when it comes out. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I will see you next time.